Hi, everybody. Happy Thursday. It is wet where I am. I hope it's dry and sunny where you are, but if you're in the triangle, probably not. But thank you for dropping by. I get to talk about one of my favorite subjects anyway, residential real estate and how to do really great in it. We're at 3 Agent now, 3agent.com. Love for you to sign up. There's lots of classes where you can learn and grow and understand. And today's topic is my tips and what I've seen, tips for aspiring leaders in real estate. And that's a favorite subject of mine because you never really graduate from that subject. You continue to grow in that subject as long as you live and breathe if you're approaching it from the right perspective. So, the first thing I would say in that guideline is when you think about leadership, I want you to wipe everything you know about leading out. And I want you to understand one really basic fundamental about leadership that one of my mentors taught me long ago. And it's just a simple saying, and it's so true if you really think about it. Living is leading. So if you're living and breathing, you are influencing somebody. You're always influencing somebody. Everything you do in life influences others that are around you that you know are looking, and people that you don't even know are looking at you. So living is leading. So don't say, oh, I'm not a leader. I don't want to be a leader. I just want to be, whatever. Actually, to be a leader, you become a great follower first. From a leader that you respect and trust. But I want you to know that everybody's a leader. Living is leadership. I think about a great saying that I heard a long time ago from a man by the name of Jim Valvano, who used to be the coach of North Carolina State University. Now, don't you any Duke fans or Wake Forest fans or UNC fans get mad at me, but Jim Valvano was bigger than life. And many, many years ago, he said something I will never, ever forget. He said, if God takes me to heaven and makes me a street cleaner, I'm going to be the best darn street cleaner I can possibly be. And I want to tell you that is the attitude of a great leader. It's you don't start at the top. You start wherever you are at being excellent, as being the very best you can be. Don't wait to get that position. Don't wait to get to that raise. You do what you can right now, and you will shine. You will shine. You will be noticed. You will make an effect on those around you, and that's part of it. So the actual leadership is taking responsibility for something. People don't like to take responsibility. I remember an old comedian years ago, he said, "Not my job, man. It's not my job, man." And that's mostly the attitude of what we're around a lot of times. Oh, I don't know. That's not my job. But if you don't know, and that's not your job, at least know the source to get to the right source to help somebody else out in their journey. So leadership is not just giving orders. There's lots of things that we used to talk about in leadership. One of them was servant leadership. And I have a certain amount of respect for that. I think if you are a good leader, you are serving those that you are leading. But it stops at some point, and you have to do the tough things that happen in leadership. So my next point in giving you tips about leadership is that you have to make decisions. And there's a lot of responsibility when you make decisions, not only for yourself, but maybe for your family, maybe for your children, maybe for those that you're over. When you make decisions, you ultimately are taking more responsibility. I believe great leaders work for their people, but they also must make those decisions. And when you get into the territory of making decisions, there's going to be some right decisions and there's going to be some wrong decisions. And so you always want to make the right decision. Of course you do. but there's people that are paralyzed when it comes to making decisions. I'm not one of those people. However, there are people that really have a problem with making decisions, and making a decision is really one of the only things that can move you forward in your goals, in your in your team, if you're in real estate, in your career. Making decisions is one of the only things. It's a skill that you've got to learn. And by the way, if you've got any questions or any comments, just type them in. I hate to talk alone. Really, I'm not a long talker. I won't be on here more than 10 minutes, but I want you to participate with me, because one thing I can tell you is that I do know a fair amount about leadership in real estate. I can talk to people who want to run a team. I can talk to people who want to buy real estate. I can talk to people who want to invest in real estate. And I can talk to people who want to sell real estate and tell them how to get the best out of any market. So ultimately, you'll be making those decisions. And that's when you grow, is when you make decisions. So once I was in a very vulnerable place in my life, and this unexpected source came to me, and she said, I'll never forget it, because I thought it was really strange that she said it. She said, do something, even if it's wrong. I'm not sure I would give you that same advice, but I understand the premise. Get out of inertia. To make a decision is to move forward, even sadly, sometimes if it's wrong. Hopefully you can correct that very, very quick. Since then, I have adopted the theory, and I try to live by this. I try to assess. I do think about decisions. I try not to make snap decisions, but sometimes you make a gut decision. And when you've done something for a long time, sometimes you're pretty good at making gut decisions. However, you try to slow down a little bit, be a little bit more thoughtful, make that decision. But then my stance after that is, make a decision and then make it right. No second guessing yourself, no looking back, make that decision and then make it right. If that wasn't the case, every marriage in the United States of America would end in divorce, because there is a time when you get married when you said, well, why did I do this? My goodness. Well, why did I take this job? Why did I start this big expense? There's going to be those times that happen. And when that happens, you've got to make the difference. You make up the difference by making that decision right. So I think that's important. One of the biggest things I have admired about leaders that I value and that I look up to is the trait of humility. And you might think that's a servant leader. You might think a lot of things about it, but it's a lack of arrogance. To me, humility is being respectful of others. Especially, I can tell a lot about a person by the way they treat people who cannot help them. In other words, the way they treat a renter in my business, the way they treat a renter on the phone. This is somebody that can't help you. You're not in the rental business. You're in the home sales business or some other portion of business. But what about the street cleaner? What about the person at the dry cleaners? What about the waitress? What about street people? I mean, how do you treat people that really can do you no good in life? And I think that says a lot about your genuine character. And, some people would say, how do you treat people whose status is lower than yours? Now, I'm not a status person. Actually, I think we fought a war about that one time. We may fight one again, but that war was in 1776 when we fought to be away from England. And England had a status, a caste system, like some countries still do. They have what I call the royalty, and then after royalty, they had dukes and duchesses. And those people often did not treat servants and people that were of a different social status the same as them. And I think humility gives you a genuine willingness to listen to others and what they've gone through in life, and that will help you. Their opinions matter. Often I've said in real estate, give me somebody that doesn't know anything about real estate and let me put them in a position fresh from maybe another industry, and let's see what you see through your eyes, through your fresh eyes, because I've looked at real estate for such a long time. I have a great value for people seeing it for the first time, for people going through it for the first time, going through the sale of a home the first time, going through the purchase of a home. So also humility values criticism. And boy, that's a tough one. I mean, nobody likes to be criticized, but if you look at criticism as a way to better yourself, and I'm not talking about people who beat you up. In real estate, there's a lot of people that will just beat you up one day. And it's natural to get your back up and say, I didn't deserve that. And maybe you didn't. But what you've got to do is you've got to try to parse out the tiny bit of that criticism that you can use to make yourself better, or to make the process better of buying and selling homes, which is what we do. So acknowledge that you are not perfect. That is humility. And sometimes I've met people that are perfect. Have you? At least they thought they were perfect. So I don't think great leaders are perfect. I think they're human beings who have attained a lot of experience. So that's the ones I value. Another thing is great leaders appreciate the contributions of their teams, their people, their posse, their BFFs, whatever you want to call it. But they appreciate you don't go through life alone. You do influence other people. If you've got a team in real estate, it's not just you. Even though your name may be at the top, you've got to acknowledge the people that help you get there. And that is really something I see lacking in many, many people, many leaders. So the next trait I would say that a great leader needs to know about, or that a young aspiring leader needs to know about, is just how do you react to failure? Well, I tell you what, in a Facebook world, if your failures were flashed out there instead of all your beautiful profiles, we'd all be in a little bit of different shape, wouldn't we? We'd go through those pictures pretty well. And it's just flashes of perfection. Well, life is not perfect. You're going to fail. As a matter of fact, if you're not failing, you're not moving forward. You've got to fail in life to really move forward. And failure is, the biggest thing about failure is it's uncomfortable. You don't like to be embarrassed. You don't like to look bad in front of other people. It's really affects some people. And I've seen some agents that go through a failure, and it's really hard because in real estate, you get very close to your people. You get very close to your buyers. So if that buyer, for example, comes back and said, you didn't do this right, or you didn't do that right, it's personal. And it's much different in that respect than many other professions. But I've seen some agents that once they had that failure, they go back into a shell, and it affects them for much longer than it should affect them. But a great leader knows they're going to fail. And so they have a process for how they get through that failure. And instead of it freezing them up and them never wanting to work again, never want to, I actually had a team leader who was probably a great team leader, put together a real estate team. And it didn't work. She had some disappointments. There's some disappointments. People let you down, that you feel like they've stabbed you in the back. It just happens. And so her reaction was, I am never going to have a team again. Well, when you have a goal and you don't reach that goal, make a new goal, I guess. There's nothing wrong if you really tried it and said, this is not for me, but what's your new goal? But the better way to look at that is I've found a way it doesn't work. I've had some big disappointments. How can I learn from that? How can I accept that? How can I move forward? How can I assess that and set my system in a place that it can move forward so that that doesn't happen again? And it never stops happening. You work. This is a people business. You work with people, and people can and will disappoint you. So the only thing you have control over is your own self and how you react to that and how fast you move forward after something like that happens. And don't ignore it. I mean, ignoring it is not good. Deciding how you're going to handle it. I had something very, very stressful happen to me this year. I knew it was going to happen. It was going to happen the next day, and it was going to break my heart. And so, of course, had a very sleepless night. Has real estate ever caused you to have a sleepless night? Maybe you're better than me, but I've had many sleepless nights in real estate because I get close to people. And so I knew it was going to happen, but I had time to think about exactly how I was going to handle it. And I'll tell you, many times in the past, I've handled that same situation wrongly, but this time I handled it right. And I was really proud of the job. And once I had that sleepless night and I handled that situation, it was off of my shoulders in a way I can't even explain to you, because I did my very best with it. It was gut-wrenching, but I did my very best with it. So don't let failure freeze you. Don't let it get you hostile. The correct way to react to failure is just accept and acknowledge it. It's a learning opportunity. Take time to dissect the failure, what went wrong, and then make a correction of that failure part of your process going forward. In other words, I say this to my closing department, my listing department all the time. We've done this before. If something happens wrong, and I try to get my team members to think about this, put something in place where this particular thing doesn't happen again. It might be getting county septic records on every single listing that we take. It might, the new offer to purchase and listing agreement put much more responsibility on the agent than we've ever had before. So taking that responsibility and going that extra mile is something we need to do or train our people to do. So you develop a plan that addresses that failure, you innovate, you share what you've learned with the people you trust on your team. And, communication with both your clients and your team equals trust. If you're really just talking straight to people, you bounce back with a total fresh perspective. And it is beautiful when you learn how to bounce back strong. In other words, yeah, that hurt. I took a punch, but I'm bouncing back strong. I'm better for it. You know that old saying, what doesn't kill you make you stronger? Wow. Listen, so my last 2 points, next to last point is developing discipline. And wow, that's hard. I don't really like discipline. I don't like anybody telling me what to do. I just don't like it. I don't know anybody that really does. So, but to get from point A, where you are now, to hopefully a goal that you have established, and if you're not living your life with goals, believe me, you've got to write them down. You've got to review them, and you've got to have them in front of you on a daily basis. So you establish a daily routine that guides you towards that goal. Everything you think, remember that great book, Think and Grow Rich, taught us the famous saying, thoughts are things. So everything you're thinking and everything that you're saying is moving you towards those goals. And believe me, establishing that daily routine is what reinforces that discipline to get you from point A to point B. So you prioritize the tasks that are just going to be the most important. I tell agents all the time, if you make 100 new calls to prospective buyers, prospective sellers a week, now 100 calls to fresh, that's called prospecting. It might be your sphere of influence. But if you make consistently 100 calls a week, which is 20 new conversations a day, and it's not counting follow-up, you will be successful in this industry. I don't care if you've had any sales training at all. You just can call them up and say, do you know anybody that wants to buy or sell their house, or sell a house, or buy a house? You really can't lose if you do the basic, and the basic is 100 conversations a week. People don't like to do it because there's rejection in that pile. But if you put that as your main step, you break down success into manageable steps, and then you go forward. And then, listen, a lot of real estate people, including myself, are very social. I'm a social being. I also think I'm very good on the phones, but that might be a little less humility than I should be showing today. But I think being on the phone is just the fastest way to go through a lot of people. And you are a salesperson, so you have to go through those people. But everybody wants immediate gratification. And the thing I would say about the growth in somebody's career, in somebody's life, is that they can resist those urges for direct gratification. I actually talked to a great friend and agent yesterday, and we were talking about the difference between working from home and working in the office. And I'm an office person. I mean, I am going to get up, I'm going to get out of that house, because if I'm at home, I'm going to be throwing a load of dishes in, I'm going to be throwing probably a washer in, I'm going to be doing something I shouldn't do. And but she says, hey, I have got my office set up where I am very productive. And I respected that, because I actually tried it one time. I was miserable at it, but I get a fresh perspective when I come to office. Coming to the office is also distractive. And one of the things she said about working from home is she loved it because she had less distractions. I would have had a lot of distractions, but it's just your mindset on that. So practicing time management, something that worked for me because I am social and I don't like to get up and move around, is work for 25 minutes and then get up and walk around the office and say hello for the next 5 minutes, or take a break and go get an energy drink. That's what I do sometimes. So I think that is really important. And the developing discipline is something that gives you gratification in the long term. If you can, people, I say 100 calls a week and it freaks people out. And I did it for years. For years, I would not go home unless I had talked to 20 people. So that's what builds a career. That's what builds a business. The last two things I'll go over, and the difference between wisdom and knowledge. Knowledge is, you can go to school, you can learn how to be a scientist, you can learn a lot of specific things that will give you knowledge. Wisdom actually comes from being on the streets, being in the business, having those downfalls, and it happens. You have to be willing to put yourself out there, even though you will make mistakes. So the last thing I would say to you on your path, and if you really want to get to be a great leader, is to be a great follower first, and to find a great mentor, somebody that you respect, perhaps somebody that's achieved what you want to achieve, somebody that you can relate to on many levels. There also should be some diversity in your choice of mentors. I met somebody one time years ago, and she said, "Oh, I've got a mentor for everything. I've got the personal trainer, I've got that mentor, and then I've got the business coach and that mentor, and then I've got a spiritual coach." And I thought about it. Well, that makes sense, because one mentor does not do everything you want to do. You can't talk to your business coach about your real estate career. You can talk to him about your business career, but you can't talk about how to build more muscles. That would be your physical coach. So I think mentorship is very important. Finding somebody to be your mentor. And actually, the most shocked I've been recently, and I'll end up with this, is I was talking to what I consider really a successful agent. And I said, "Who has been your mentors?" And she said, "Well, I don't think I've really had any." And that was a little shocking for me. So I recommend that you learn from other people and that you find some mentors to help you. I've certainly had spiritual mentors. I've actually had personal trainers. I've had business coaches. And I want you to get the very best that you can get out of the no ceiling business and career that you have in residential real estate. So I'm going to wrap it with that. I'll stick around for a minute or so. If you've got any comments or anything you'd like to add, I'd love to hear from you. We are always talking to people and asking how we can help in their journey to whatever they want to achieve in real estate. That's very, very important. So thank you for joining me today. Thank you for being here.
All right, guys, feel free to put some questions in the chat or DM us. I'll go through some DMs here. It kind of ties in with what you're just talking about, Marty, so we can go off of that. It's did you have any sort of mentor or inspiring figure starting out in real estate?
You know, the first man who hired me in real estate was a retired Air Force. It was retired Air Force. It was very drab. He was very straight-laced, and at that time he was retirement age, which I would have thought. And I went and interviewed with him. I didn't think much about it. He probably had a lot of people interview, and he called me back, and he said, "Marty, I don't usually do this, and I don't know whether this is his regular spiel for whoever he talked to." He says, "I don't usually call people back, but I wanted to tell you." I just think if you ever get into real estate that you're going to be very good at it. And that was enough to make me, I didn't take much, just a small pat on the head. I'm like a hungry dog for affection. I got into real estate, and that was great. And so I've had a couple of mentors in real estate. I can tell you about all of them, but I have had mentors.
And here's a follow-up. How did you choose your mentor, or did they choose you?
I think one time I think I've told you this before, but I came to a small company when I first came into the Triangle area, and I was very shy and I was just going through a lot. So it wasn't a very big company. The best thing that first broker ever told me was you have to be in good physical condition to be in real estate, because real estate takes a lot of energy, and that was true. But then one day I must have got my confidence up a little bit. That's another thing that aspiring leaders need to have, is a little bit of confidence even when they fail. And I called up Dick Roseberry, who was then at Merrill Lynch, that became Prudential, that became Berkshire Hathaway. And I said, "Dick," I said, "you don't know me. My name is Marty Hampton." I said, "and if I come to work for you, I'm going to make you a lot of money." Cocky person that I was. And I did go to work for him, and I did earn him a lot of money. And he actually helped me over the years. He kind of honed me into being a little bit more polished.
I think this is your last one here. You mentioned Think and Grow Rich. Are there any entrepreneurship books or podcasts you might recommend besides that one?
I like Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I think that's a really good book. There's a lot of podcasts out there. I don't have one. I do. You Are More, Amy Wienans. You Are More is a fantastic podcast because it deals with your integrity and your inside rather than just business. Everything is not just business. It's about who you are and who you project. And I think Amy can teach you a lot on that podcast.
Yeah, just want to jump in. If you guys sign up for 3 Comma Agent, we'll send you a notice whenever Amy does a new show. We'll send you an email for that.
That'd be great. That'd be great. Thanks, guys. Thanks for coming by. Great to talk to you. Have a great day and go sell some real estate.